Welcome to episode 3 of the Peak Pursuits podcast. This week I talked with Neil Laughton, who has had a life packed full. He's a former SAS officer, an entrepreneur, having built a company up to a revenue of 40 million, which later got sold to a FTSE 100. He's led 50 expeditions across 7 continents. And as you'll come to appreciate through this podcast, you could give him many different titles. And so I hope you enjoy listening. Neil Laughton, welcome to the podcast. Over the past week or so doing my research, I've had to keep checking to make sure that the articles I was reading are talking about the same Neil Laughton, because you've had an abundance of experience from different fields. It's as if you've lived multiple lives. You've had many successes and accomplishments, but that doesn't come without many failures and some hardship. So I'd like to talk not only about the successes that you've had, but also the difficulties you face in getting there. You grew up in Sussex, and your first adventure you can recall was at the age of 13, canoeing and camping down a local river. What is the difference between, for those that don't know, what's the difference between a canoe and a kayak?
I'm not sure, Sam. But by the way, thanks for having me on your podcast. The difference between a canoe and a kayak, honestly, I don't know. They both propel yourself forwards in the water in a kind of a contraption. Some single seat, some double. I've been in lots of canoed across the English Channel, kayaked various rivers. I have no idea what the difference between the two are.
Can you recall who that first adventure was with, and what was the incentive for that adventure?
Yeah, so for me, I was rubbish academically at school, and so you line yourself with stuff and things and activities that you enjoy, and I just loved being in the outdoors, being on the sports field, and being a little bit adventurous, and that just took the form of climbing trees and bunking off school occasionally, and running away from home, and all that kind of stuff that teenagers sometimes do. And I just found an outlet with just being independent. And there was a local river. Somehow I got hold of a canoe and a kayak, I have no idea. I think it was a Canadian canoe from memory, and I persuaded we were both 13, but a friend from the same house and school to come with me on the journey. It was like 3 days. We took a tent and some sleeping bags, and as far as I'm aware, we were on our own going from A to B. Had the plan, told my parents and dad. Whether he was, skulking in the bushes just with binoculars, I've no idea, but certainly didn't see anybody really, and stopped us for 3 days. It was a wonderful experience, and I suppose in hindsight set me up for being more adventurous and organising and leading expeditions really for the rest of my life since, and up until the current day.
You said that you didn't particularly excel in academia, more so in the sporting side. What sports was it that you were playing at school?
Oh yeah, so I was really keen rugby player, but pretty much anything. Summer I was captain of the tennis team. I was in the first 15 for rugby for 3 straight years, so I was pretty handy. On the sports field, I was reasonably good athlete, but that is balanced by a shocking state of affairs with regards to academia. I was always in the lower set, a slow learner. I struggled with the with Latin, with English, with math, physics. I burnt the chemistry lab down, or nearly burnt the chemistry lab down, when an experiment with magnesium went horribly wrong. It just didn't suit me. But I had an awful experience, if I'm honest, with the academic side. I in junior school, about to go into the senior school, and there's an exam. I did miserably badly at that, and was back yeared, so I remained an extra year in the junior school. The house and headmaster told me to my face he didn't think I would pass a single GCSE or O-level exam back in the day when my time came. And, that was a pretty horrible thing to hear, that you were being cast as a dimwit. But yeah, I mean, I just wasn't very good at academia and maths particularly. But I was reasonably sporty, athletic, adventurous. And the one thing I think that saved me, it was I have a huge dose of determination. And so when I set my mind to something, I will, one way or another, achieve it. And that started out with a desire to join the Marines. I'd had an experience through my dad, who was in the Navy, and he put an experience on the table for a few of us, and we spent 3 days at sea on an aircraft carrier in the Solent, and it was a wonderful experience. Not that I wanted to join the Navy, but it was a Royal Marines exercise on board that really stimulated my imagination, and I literally said there and then I wanted to join the Marines. Difficulty was, Sam, was that I had to pass maths O-level to become to be eligible to join the Royal Marines as a young officer. And so that became my focus. I had to pass that exam. The first attempt, I scored a U, the lowest grade in maths and, well, any exam on the curriculum. The next attempt, 6 months later, was an E, still a fail, and a pretty miserable fail at that. And it was desperate stakes. One last attempt, and I knew in another 6 months' time this would be it. My dream of joining the Marines would be null and void if I didn't pass it. So I went to see the best maths teacher in the school, who was obviously tutoring all the best maths students. And I didn't deserve his time or his expertise, but I begged, please, will you give me some extra tuition to help me pass this blasted exam? I got one more chance, and it's not happening in the bottom set for me at the moment. Please, will you help me? Very kindly, he did. Mark Belcher was his name, the teacher, Mr. Belcher, and he gave me some personal tuition, and I managed to scrape a C grade pass on the third attempt. And so determination, hugely important for me and pretty much everybody else, I think, in life.
Yeah, I think it's also about coming up with creative solutions to things. You could have sat on the back foot and accepted that you probably weren't going to pass your maths, but you came up with a solution that was going to see the top maths teacher in the school, and that helped you pass. Yeah,
I didn't give up. Absolutely.
Didn't give up, and that's you can tell that through the rest of your life as well. to achieve what you have, you must have some grit in you. Yeah. But after traveling, after you finished school and passing your maths GCSE, you went traveling. Is that right?
Yeah, I had a wonderful time. One of the things I did before leaving school was write to Colonel John Blashford Snell, who became a bit of a hero of mine. He was a great engineer, colonel in the army, and he was doing some incredible things with Operation Drake, Operation Rally, started Rally, the Rally youth movement, and was giving opportunities to inner city kids and disadvantaged pupils from inner cities around the UK and abroad. And I wrote to him, dear Colonel Blashford Snell, you're running a 2-week or 3-week survival course in the Highlands of Scotland. I would really like to do it, I wrote. And he very kindly wrote back to my school letterhead and said, dear Neil, thank you for your letter, but you're a public school, privately educated. This course is for disadvantaged inner city kids. I'm afraid you don't qualify. So I thought, oh, damn, I messed up there. Should have written on comprehensive school paper or something. But anyway, couldn't help my background and positive, lucky circumstances. But again, I didn't give up. I was pretty determined. I really wanted to do this 2 or 3 week survival course. I thought it'd be brilliant experience, good opportunity, and teach me some skills. And so I wrote to him again saying, dear Colonel John Blashford Snell, I understand I'm privileged and at a public school, but I really, really would want to do this survival course training. Anything that I can do to help, please let me know. And he wrote back again saying, "Dear Neil, I like your positivity and persistence, and come and be, when you leave school, come and be a junior instructor on the course program and work for me for 6 or 8 months, and we'll give you that experience that you need." So not only did I do the 2-week course, but I became an instructor. It was my first job on leaving school.
Brilliant.
And
Wow.
that led to all sorts of other opportunities traveling around the world. Colonel John actually gave me an opportunity to travel on a cargo ship, working my passage on a cargo ship from Rotterdam across the Atlantic, through the Panama Canal, down through the Pacific and various islands to Papua New Guinea, where he tasked me with going to see if it existed, the world's first fire-breathing dragon on an island called Daru, north of Australia. And so off I was dispatched on this cargo ship, learned how to navigate and steer a cargo ship as one of my course content, and then had an amazing journey around the world on this cargo ship, and then ended up hitchhiking around Australia before my call-up papers to the Marines.
What did your parents think of all this adventure at a young age?
Well, I think it was my calling. It was my initiative, and I think they were all for it. Dad, particularly, being an adventurous sort himself, he was in the Navy and traveling the world himself. So yeah, I'm sure. Not that I took much notice one's parents' advice at that age. I didn't get any negative feelings that it was bad.
No. So after traveling, you then began the Royal Marines training. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I joined still quite young, 19, and then I felt as though I was doing okay. I was super fit. Nearly got the Tarzan assault course record and all that kind of stuff. And then, and unfortunately, my dad at this stage got cancer of the esophagus and throat. Was in a bad way and was on the way out. And actually, towards the end of my training, he died. And I don't know, kind of when you lose a close parent, it can hit you sideways. And I kind of lost a lot of focus. I lost my confidence. A bit of self-esteem went out the window. And I think I struggled. I took some time off, rejoined and went back, but I think something in me died, and I wasn't quite the same person for a year or so, actually. And unfortunately, it was a competitive environment in young officer training in the Marines, and I think we had 23 officers near the end of the selection process. We were all badged qualified commandos, got the green beret and everything else, but actually being deployed into the real world on operations was a bit of a risk. And I think they only had 16 places with 23. I was one of the weakest 5 with these issues and so forth, and I was cast aside, and unfortunately ended up sofa surfing, as they say in London, looking for something else to do, and that career opportunity had disappeared.
I don't like to necessarily look back on things and think what could have happened had I made a different decision at that time. But do you ever think back at what would have happened had your father not passed away and you would have continued that Royal Marine career onwards?
Well, look, I may well have done, but nobody knows the answer to that, not least of which me. One's not party to all the decisions that are made for you. I certainly, I was young, and I was inexperienced. I had there were better candidates for sure. But I like to think that I would, if I'd been given a bit more of time and a little bit more support under the circumstances, I would have made hopefully a reasonably good Royal Marine Commando officer, but that wasn't to be. I only know that because about 3 years later, whilst scratching around in London, not having a great time in a suit, doing office equipment salesmanship, there was an opportunity after the 10th anniversary of the Iranian embassy siege, where a regimental group went in and killed a terrorist or two, stopped an atrocity in central London that got a bit of headlines. And I discovered not only that this regiment existed, but also that they were looking for volunteers. That I decided, with my year or so I'd had experience with the Marines, that I might stand a chance of passing the somewhat grueling selection process. And I did. Spent 6 years as a trooper in one of the territorial or reserve regiments of the UK Special Forces, and then I think somebody discovered that I had been an officer in the Marines, and they sent me to Sandhurst for a short career commission course, and then spent another 6 years as a reservist, troop commander in a UK Special Forces unit. And so I like to think with a bit of time I would have done okay in the Marines, but they chose a different course for me. And it's an important lesson in so much that, yes, there are always going to be disappointments and obstacles in the road of your journey in life, but sometimes a grave disappointment can turn into a positive outcome. And honestly, if I think back to my time in the UK Special Forces, it was just so much. I was in a good place. I was with good people. I was learning huge amounts of things and having great fun. And would I turn the clock back and do things differently? No, I think I would take what came to me, and I'd take what happened to me as the first choice. And so it's important to note that without giving up, being determined, creating new opportunities for yourself can reveal dividends.
Mm-hmm. Yes. There are certain traits associated with those that join the military, discipline being one of them. It's easy to do something once. Getting up at 5 a.m. and going for a run is easy to do once because it's new and exciting. Try and do that every day. And day 5, I'd guarantee that the same thing, getting you out of bed the first morning, wouldn't be the same thing to getting you out of bed on the 5th morning. There's a quote which I read the other day: motivation is what gets you started, discipline is what keeps you going. What was your relationship with discipline like prior to joining the Royal Marines, and how did the training change that?
I think being at boarding school since the age of 9, you kind of learn a bit of discipline. You have to follow rules. So I wasn't too bad at following the rules, although I quite like to break them occasionally. And, I got into trouble, certainly at school. I remember organising a massive rave and being given 8 lashings of the cane and having a sort of an expulsion for a short time, and various other misdemeanors. But no, discipline is really important, and linked to motivation. I have a sort of acronym called MAD, and it starts with motivation. There's got to be some motivation to achieve anything. A is for action, and D is for determination. So if you've got motivation followed by action followed by determination, you'll get to your end destination. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, the regiment I joined, whose motto "Who Dares Wins," has 4 principles for people who aspire to join it, and when they get in, the values as espoused the founder of the regiment, Colonel David Sterling, and he had these 4 principles, and I think they remain to this day. And the first is the never-ending pursuit of excellence. Number 2, related to your question, self-discipline. Number 3 is humility, and number 4 is humor.
Mm-hmm. Yes, humor is probably quite important when you're going through things like training for the Royal Marines. I think difficult situations like that can pull people in, and that's where you can create some real bonding with people. Are you still in touch with those that you met during the training for the Royal Marines and for the SAS?
a few from the Marines, but it was a long time ago. Certainly more from my time with UK Special Forces. Yeah. In fact, we have a really strong veterans network, officers network, and a social connection. Certainly with the latter, not so much the former.
Mm-hmm. How did the training for the SAS differ to that of the Royal Marines? I know you said it was a long time ago, the Royal Marines, but what was the difference between the training?
Well, there were similarities, but I would say that the Special Forces training is very much geared more for creativity. There's space for innovation. There's space for small groups operating kind of behind enemy lines, where you've got to demonstrate those four principles in a small group, and you have to have your wits about you, but they're always looking for slight mavericks, if I could say that, in order to overcome the pressures of being, in those kind of environments. And you're looking for people who can be independent of mind, can work in a small group and under arduous, tense, stressful situations without falling apart.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There might be some people out there that don't understand that the SAS has a separate reserve, what would you call it, squad or group? What is the reason for having the reserves?
Well, it's an expensive business having a special forces regimental setup. The government, for good or bad, believes that having one regimental permanent regular unit, i.e. regiment, based in the West Country, is good, and they are supplemented, one could say, by two reserve regiments. And in recent years, they too have been playing an integral role in the defense of the realm and project defense and force outside of the boundaries of the United Kingdom, and they do amazing work around the world in different arenas. So yeah, it's an important function in doing a great job, particularly with regards to battle casualty reserves, for example. So when there are situations where the regulars don't have the right strength, they can be supplemented by elements from the reserve regiments north and south of the Watford Gap.
So would you be put on call? Is that how they describe it? And when you're needed, you're then called out to wherever in the world the the SAS are operating?
Yeah, so obviously regulars are full time, and the reservists do anything from 50, I would say, to 150 plus days a year. Their selection is slightly different. The training courses vary a little bit, but basically the central skills and core training of a special forces operative remains the same. Starts with parachute training, goes on to signals training, to foreign weapon recognition and use, to explosives and demolitions, and all sorts of other weird and wacky specializations, shall we say.
Yes, you started to allude to this earlier, but losing your dad seemed like a bit of a pivotal moment for you. What did the Royal Marines do about the situation that you were in? Did they try and support you and help you, or did they just flick you off because they, as you said earlier, they have others that can take your place?
No, they gave me as much support as I think they could, and I would have expected. But probably in hindsight, I really probably needed to take a proper year off to sort out family difficulties, support my younger brother and mother, and really get my head in gear before rejoining. And so I think probably But hindsight's a wonderful thing. You know, if I'd taken a little bit longer, I think I would have been okay. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. So then after
I can't blame anybody other than the circumstances and myself.
Yeah. So after leaving the Royal Marines, you said you then went up to London to find some jobs, and you worked as a salesman. Is that right? For a few years in London?
Yeah, that's right. I became a self-employed office equipment salesman. Glamorous, eh?
What did so how?
It basically meant if you didn't sell anything, you didn't earn a living. So it focused the mind. And you talked about you know, discipline earlier. I think you know, whether it's a selection process for special forces or Marines, you know, people give up really easily, and it was exactly the same in Civvy Street. So there was this 3-week sales training course in order to get a job at this pretty high stress self-employed status office equipment business that ended up joining, only because I was desperate to get some sort of income coming in after leaving the Marines. I had a few £100 to my name. I wasn't going to last long in London. So I signed up to a 3-week voluntary sales training course in order to qualify to get a job. 90% of the people who started that sales training course, it was tough. It was, you know, getting up early, full days of selling, and, you know, proving that you weren't shy and you could go cold calling on office blocks and this, that, and the other. And 90% of the people just faded away. You know, they just had no guts for it. And I just stuck it out, got to the end of the course, got a job, and just applied myself to my new reality of being a self-employed salesman. And I would go, you know, get up early, get to the office 7 o'clock in the morning, work out what I was going to do for the day, which area of London I was going to target, and then I was just literally going to drive. In the old days, we used to drive, park the car legally on a double yellow line and cold call the top of an office block all the way down the company's different floors till you got some engagement and hopefully sell something.
Had the world
you
of
know, it's all about discipline. It's all about focus, and it was all about being determined and finding ways to achieve the objective to win clients, win business, and you know, just be determined, disciplined.
Had the world of business appealed to you before you started your training for the Royal Marines?
No, not at all. But needs must. You know, I signed into a YMCA in Stockwell near Brixton. It was pretty dire. Survived that for a year or so, and then I went to do a sort of shared lodging. I had a bed in a corridor in a ground floor flat in Brixton. Every time the other people went to the loo, they'd brush past my bed to get to the loo. It was pretty good. It was pretty dire, but you know, needs must. And you know, as soon as I started earning some money by selling stuff, office equipment, and doing printing deals and this, that, and the other, I managed to build up some money. Put a deposit down on a house, and that got me on the property ladder, and then, you know, started my business career proper.
So that initial job as a salesperson you had ended when the boss committed suicide in his, I think you said it was a brown Rolls Royce. Is that right?
Yeah, you've done your research. Yeah, no, I had, you know, just like the Marines, I had some difficult times. That company I did the sales training for and did 2 years worth of selling. Basically, the owner of the company was proved to be a fraud. He was about to go down for tax avoidance and you know, go to jail, and he decided to take his own life. That ceased the company stone dead in its tracks, and us self-employed salespeople, we lost like 6 months worth of money. It was a disaster. So I then had to find a new job. I got a role as a sales and marketing manager for a construction company. Unfortunately, the two directors of that company were playboys. They spent the company money on fast cars and golf, and I was made redundant, and the company went bust shortly thereafter because nobody was bringing in the sales. And then I joined another company, had good prospects. It was an established company, but starting out a new arm of the business. So it was a property related business, setting up a construction arm. And I remember it was less than $1 million turnover. And I joined it as the sales and marketing manager. In fact, I wasn't given the job straight off. The managing director interviewing me wanted a sales and marketing manager, but reckoned I hadn't got enough clout and experience and to warrant being given the job. So I remember, just before I got sent out the door, I said, I think I can do the job. Mr. King was his name. I said, I think I can do the job. And how about this? I will work for you for 2 weeks free of charge. If at the end of the 2 weeks you think I've done a good job and I've proved myself, you can offer me the job on the salary indicated, and we'll go from there. And he agreed. I worked 2 weeks free of charge, and I did prove myself, and I got the job. 18 months in, we had from starting, when I said the company's turnover was less than £1 million, 18 months later, as the only sales and marketing person within the business, working directly with Mr. King, the MD, we had an order book of 15 million. That's quite impressive growth.
Certainly is, yeah.
And I can explain how I managed that. We managed it, if you've got time. But after 18 months, I thought, when he asked me to come in, especially on a Monday morning early for a meeting, that I was going to get a pay rise and a pat on the back. What I got was my P45 and my marching orders. And I thought, I just didn't get it. I didn't understand. And so pretty down in the mouth, I decided then and there that I would never again rely on anybody else to, control my wage packet and my career prospects. So I started my own firm.
How did the qualities that you had at that time from your adventurous activities, such as joining the Royal Marines, influence your approach to business in the early years?
I think just a focus on the mission. What is it that you're striving for? Being very clear on what it is that you want to achieve. How are you going to do it? Coming up with cogent strategic plans, decision making, and being utterly determined to succeed and not not give up too easily to failure. And if there was failure, then go again.
So after deciding that you would never work for someone ever again, you then proceeded to start up your own company, which was in direct competition with your previous employer. And you built this company to the point where eventually you sold it to a FTSE 100.
Yeah, so it was a fairly long old journey, about 17 years. It was two fingers up to the former previous employer. We were in direct competition, and we just felt quite good to go, sod you. I don't need you for my salary. I'm gonna do it on my own with help from a business partner eventually, and then some great work colleagues, and we had a really exciting journey building a business from nothing to 40 million turnover, which in the commercial interiors business was quite substantial. Doing some of the biggest commercial interiors, fitting out refurbishment deals in London at the time and elsewhere. And one day we won the £20 million project for BAA at Heathrow Airport, and it was the biggest single commercial interiors refurbishment contract in the year in the land, and came with a lot of introspection from other companies, other competitors. In fact, I remember the tender list for that contract was 46 companies long, two-stage tender. So it was a hell of a process. It probably actually to to get onto the tender list and to pitch and bid for it, it cost about £65,000. A hell of a commitment. When you think 46 other companies are spending the same amount of money, that's how inefficient and the tendering process is in this country and elsewhere. It's a hell of a waste of resource and time and effort. There's got to be a better way to do it. But that was the situation. 46 companies over a 1-year tender process to win a £20 million project. Luckily, my business won it and we delivered it. And at that point, said FTSE 100, a company called Balfour Beatty, were pretty pissed off that we'd won it on their turf. And, being a massive PLC, huge industry leading company in the sector, just said, right, let's go and buy this little miserable company that Laughton owns. And they came in and put a bid on the table. We did a bit of negotiation, 6 months due diligence. And next time I looked, I was out of a job, but in good circumstances with a healthy check in my bank account.
So would you say, therefore, that selling the company then allowed you to pursue your deeper passions, such as the adventure and the travel?
Yes, but I didn't let that. It didn't mean that I had stopped during my 17 years working at my company. I remember having a business partner, because he, I was a sales guy, but I knew nothing about construction ultimately. So I needed a business partner, and I had a business partner from, the first 6 months in. And I remember 2 years after starting the company, I had an opportunity to go and climb Everest, and that's an 8-week holiday. So imagine this, you're building a company together in London, lots of, bills to pay. I'm the sales guy and I'm asking for 8 weeks holiday to go and climb Everest. It didn't go down particularly well, but I was, like everything in my life, I was determined and managed to put a good case forward as to why I should be allowed to go and climb Everest. And as it happened, it was great because all of our customers, prospective customers, 25 odd years ago, it was a pretty novel thing for somebody to go off, certainly from, somebody in a pinstripe suit to go off and climb Everest. So it was noteworthy, and I think it drew some attention to the business and the opportunities. And I think when you were up against 6 other sales guys pitching for some work, that guy who's climbed Everest, he's, why don't we give the business to him? He deserves it, rather than all the other grey suits out there boring so-and-sos. And so I think it actually genuinely did help back in the day, that that time off. So yeah, I was adventuring and organising expeditions right the way from 13 all the way through all aspects, including my military service, and in my business career, I was my hobby, if you like, was organising and leading adventurous expeditions around the world.
Yeah, you've organised and led more than 50 expeditions on 7 different continents. Which of these adventures stands out to you the most, if you can pick one?
Oh gosh, I mean, terrible, difficult question, Sam. How can you pick from sort of, I don't know, 50 to 75 trips? I'll pick a couple of really fun ones. Skiing to North and South Poles is always exciting. If you get a good team going with you, it can be exhilarating. Love that. Paddleboarding, new sport in my life in recent times. We did the first circumnavigation of Easter Island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on an inflatable paddleboard with sharks circling. That was pretty exciting. And then took a team down of clients actually down the Amazon, one of the tributaries of the Amazon, on a paddleboard. Not quite as difficult paddling conditions, but just an extraordinary experience. And then there's all the climbing stuff, 6 expeditions to Everest, including the world's highest black tie dinner party, which was great fun. And also, my signature expedition's probably the flying car. So a great friend of mine designed the world's first road legal flying car, and I knew in order to pay for it, I had to get some sponsorship. The only way to get sponsorship was to organise a newsworthy adventure or expedition journey, and I chose 10,000 kilometres of London to Timbuktu. And it was a 46-day journey crossing the Sahara Desert in a car that flew like a paraglider.
So with all of these adventures, it's important to have, or how important is it for you to have a team behind you? I know you said whilst you're doing a different podcast that you'd hate doing adventures on your own. It's the team that counts. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, so listen, I do my kind of training on my own, and that's got its place. And go up Devil's Dyke and the South Downs 3 or 4 times a week. One does one's press ups and sit ups in the morning, and then one goes to work. But when I'm on a mission, an expedition, an adventure, I just think it's so much more rewarding going with other like-minded people, and it's also an element of sharing the experiences that you have with others, giving them opportunities who will then like yourself, when you're nice and young, you can learn from people with the grey hair and then go off and lead and take others, and so the cycle continues. But for me, it's far more exciting, rewarding, pleasurable, just doing stuff, expeditions, journeys, adventures, travel with other people, as long as you can get on with them, and everyone is doing, contributing in their own way. Then great, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, one of those people that you go on adventures with is Tom Clues, who I was fortunate enough to interview a couple of weeks back. How did you meet Tom?
Tom's a great guy, like me, full of enthusiasm, the joys of life, and brave. He does some incredible stuff. He's obviously climbed Everest, as you discovered. I can't remember. I possibly might have encouraged him to learn to ride a penny farthing, and he's gone off and done some amazing penny farthing journeys, Highlands of Scotland and Shetland Islands and places like that. He flies paragliders, paramotors, which I do as well, and we've done. We flew the other day with Bear Grylls and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, he's a man after my own heart, and a good man.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. You also made friends with Bear Grylls whilst you were an SAS officer. How does
I'm sure I just mentioned his name. Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So what does your relationship with Bear look like now? Because that's a name that I'm sure lots of people will recognize.
Yeah. So Bear did serve with me in the UK Special Forces, as I think most people will probably know. It was quite a funny moment, actually, because it was around about 97 when we first met, and I had climbed Everest, or attempted to climb Everest, in 1996. I got caught in the storm that killed 8 people, pretty torrid time. So obviously I had good experience, but it was a fairly negative experience, and I hadn't got to the summit. So it wouldn't be right, having spent the most of this podcast extolling the virtues of being determined and toughing it out and going again, to give up on the first attempt. So I was planning to go back 2 years later, so in 1998. In 97, Bear was in the regiment. He was a trooper. I think at that stage I was an officer. And I remember him asking, "Sir, may I come and see you, sir, to discuss an expedition, sir?" And anyway, he rocks up, and keen as mustard. And obviously, I give him the time of day because he's in my regiment. And Trooper Grills, why do you think you're going to be suitable for coming on my second expedition to Everest to climb the biggest mountain on the planet? What mountains have you climbed? Well, none, sir. but I'm very good at climbing trees, sir. Right. Okay, Trooper Grills, go away, go and climb a mountain, and preferably one of these three. And when you have done so successfully, come back and talk to me. So he took that advice, went off and climbed Amadablam in Nepal, which is a tricky old mountain, quite high, reasonably difficult and daring. He came back successful with the summit photograph. Right, sir, I've climbed Amadablam. May I join your expedition now? Yes, you may, Mr. Grills.
Brilliant.
So he was on my team. We had four members, mostly military guys, for the second attempt on the world's highest mountain. And actually, as it happened, in was it 26th of May? It was actually a young Bear Grylls, 23-year-old, and myself, a little bit older and more experienced, that summited together, and we've remained friends ever since.
Fantastic. These adventures, as you discussed earlier, they can be quite expensive, and you've had to seek funding or sponsorship. But this expedition up Everest, how did you get the funding for that? Well, did the SAS say, well, do they have a budget that they can put into things like this?
No, I've seen an awful lot of military expeditions fail because of the politics. I've always been of the mind that if you want to organize something, do it yourself and find non-political organizations to support you. You know, so many of the military, particularly Everest expeditions, have fallen apart because of you know, various reasons, but it generally stems too many chiefs or too many cooks. And you know, just too large. You know, they're just unwieldy. And so I've always believed in smaller groups and keep it private. You know, then you can make the decisions. So the way I funded the Everest expeditions, pretty much the same as most of my trips. Actually, I think about what the mission is. I try and put a little spin on it, make it attractive to certain types of sponsors, and then go out and ask for a modest amount of money, but times 6 or times 10. And so people feel they're involved. I try and ensure that they are involved, sometimes actively involved in the mission. Or, you know, in the case of Everest, it's, you know, I'll take your flag to the summit and take a nice photograph, and you can have it on your boardroom wall, or come and give a talk to the staff, or whatever it might be, in return for £5,000, £10,000, £100,000, whatever the mission, whatever the suitable amount.
All of these adventures are very interesting to read about and to listen to. You've written a book, which I have here. It unfortunately turned up 2 days before this recording, so I'm not too deep into it yet. But what was the?
I hope it doesn't send you to sleep, Sam. But no, it's you reach a stage in life where you think, before I can't remember all the details. I better put some of this stuff down. I've had some amazing trips, maybe amazing adventures, and yeah, it's a book called Adventureholic. You know, so many people had said to me, I've got to record all the stuff that has gone on, and the disasters and the triumphs and the sheer variety of expeditions that I've done, from flying cars to paddling a bath made of ice across the Solent, to all the different ascents of Everest with parachutes, with climbing boots, and you'll probably read with a bottle of champagne to set the world's highest black tie dinner party world record.
Brilliant. Yes. What do you hope that people will get out of reading this book?
Yeah, so the reason why I wrote it was, because I think there's some fun stories in there that I ought to get out before I get Alzheimer's or dementia. But probably more importantly, it's really to inspire the next generation, you know, people like yourself, to have a life less boring. You know, I'm a great believer that being active and travel and opening your eyes to you know, new experiences and learning from other people and other cultures is really important. And if I can encourage and inspire a few people upon reading my book, with all the adventures around the world on 7 continents by land, sea, and air, then it'll have been worth the 2 years in the writing.
Certainly, yes. I'm looking forward to reading it. Your life seems like it's been packed full. Do you think you've had time to step back yet and fully appreciate the success that you've had?
Yeah, after selling my business 11 or 12 years ago, whilst I haven't stopped, I've certainly had opportunities to not do the 9 to 5 commute. Used to do the old dreadful train ride in, and but I live and work at home, so I spent time with family, seeing the kids a little more often than I did previously. So in a way, I've had a bit of a step back in the last decade or so, but I'm running 3 companies now, smaller ones, and life is forever challenging. I wouldn't have it any other way, though.
What do you have up and coming that you're looking forward to doing?
Yeah, so what gets me up every day at the moment is just a series of exciting challenges, journeys, work opportunities. So one of my businesses is encouraging senior business leaders to help them to succeed in their endeavors, from commercially and corporately, and to help them be better leaders. And so I organize, if you like, experiential learning and opportunities to grow with or without their team. And then another business is a passion, and as a hobby business, it's all about the penny farthings. And so I'm running a company that is encouraging the growth of Victorian cycling. We do all sorts of fun stuff, from charity rides to teaching people to ride to penny farthing polo, and lots of other things in between. And then finally, I have a startup business which is back in construction, trying to bring floating homes to be a reality. You just look around all the flooded fields out there, and the land that just can't be used for anything, not even grazing or growing crops, but is on a floodplain that could be used if you had the right product. And I've with a business partner, we've designed a house that will actually float on water or sit on land until the big flood comes, and then we'll just simply rise up instead of flooding and being destroyed. And so I'm working on trying to bring that to the market at the moment. So there's always a challenge. And then I've got 4 or 5 different expeditions in the different stages of the planning, from taking clients on an adventurous journey to Vietnam next month, a cycle ride with penny farthings in France along the Western Front Way, a new cycle path, to motorbiking adventure in northern Oman, to a whitewater rafting expedition in Ethiopia. And of course, the big one this year will be a fairly substantial effort to climb the 95th highest mountain in the world in order to set a new Guinness World Record with a team of 12 with a bicycle attached. So we'll try and set the world's highest bicycle ride in Nepal in September.
Fantastic. How do you
never
pick?
Never a dull day. Never a dull day.
It sounds like, well, you said you got out of the 9 to 5, but it sounds like you're probably doing a 5 to 9 in the evening now with all those different companies you're running.
Yeah, but I literally got up at 5 this morning for a business networking event, as I think we mentioned earlier. And my last port of duty will be to pick some of my children up from a late thing at school at 9 o'clock. So yeah, not 9 to 5, but 5 to 9.
Yes, yeah. So you have 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy, is that right?
Yeah, 1 boy and 2 girls.
Yes. How do you find the balance between giving them advice with all of your experience and allowing them to figure things out for themselves?
I don't give advice. I give hints. They're all teenagers. They don't really take advice, first of all. And I'm always there for them. I'm hopefully, open to assisting, helping, advising, being a good parent, providing a loving home and moral and physical support as required. They're pretty independent. Thus far, they haven't needed anything too taxing, demanding, but I'll be there should they need it. And I think that's the role of a dad and a parent. And, one can only do one's best for one's children. Of course, they're very special. I dedicate my book to my 3 children, and hopefully they'll read it one day. But yeah, one just tries to give them the best opportunity one can. And it's because they're quite lucky. I think they've got a nice home. They've got loving parental situation. My wife and I offer. She does most of the work, by the way. And that they're super lucky. And that's, I think, the reason why one of the other things that's really important to me is to support disadvantaged kids. And I've worked for 30 years voluntarily for various charities to run adventurous and expedition programs, funnily enough, which of course you've discovered is my passion, and I'm reasonably good and experienced at it. I can offer what time spare I have to kids who are less privileged and have more challenging circumstances, and to give a few hundred, if over the course of a few years, as many opportunities as we can. And I've been trying to do that as well.
Yes. If I said to you I wanted to go and climb Everest, where would you tell me to start?
Well, I'll read my book. It might put you off.
Okay, I've got one last question for you, Neil. If you could recommend one person that you know.
Let's be serious. I wouldn't ever try and put you off. I would encourage you to make good decisions around that. For example, I would ask you, just like I asked Bear Grylls, what other mountains have you climbed? Don't go climb Everest as your first mountain, for God's sake.
No.
Also, a point to note: there are 1,000,008 mountains registered around the world. That's over 1 million mountains. Everest is not the only mountain that you can go and climb. There are plenty of other beautiful, wonderful, incredible mountains in different parts of the world. Don't have to necessarily go to the most popular and the tallest one, just for the record.
Yeah, most popular it certainly is. I've seen the photos of, I think it was Nims who took the photo of the queue up to the very top of Everest.
I know, shocking. It hasn't got any better.
No. Okay, so I've got this one last question for you. If you could recommend one person that you know for me to talk to next, who would that be and why?
There's a girl called Lucy Shepherd who is a great friend of mine. She's a young, up-and-coming explorer, adventurer, professional adventurer and explorer. I met her about 5 years ago. I invited her on an expedition. We were recreating some World War II commando raids, Royal Marines, and she skied across the Hardangervidda Plateau in Norway with a team of hardy former Special Forces people with me. I took a bit of a gamble taking her, aged 18 or 19, but I saw the fire in her eyes. She was hugely determined. She also is quite a good recorder of information and photography. Mm-hmm. And so I tasked her with taking some video and some photographs whilst trying to keep up with the lads, if you like, on the ski trip. And then we did a climb up a steep valley in Norway, and then did a simulated attack on a building that was now a museum rather than the history of the World War II raid, and she did amazingly well.
Brilliant. Yeah, she sounds like a fantastic person to talk to. Considering it's Women's Week, I think that's rather a rather prominent person to talk to. And I've also
so Lucy Shepherd is my recommendation for you to speak to next. and
Fantastic.
I'll happily introduce you.
Thank you, Neil. We were talking about the book earlier. If people want to read the book or listen to it, where should they go?
I believe it's on Spotify, on Amazon. You can have it on the podcast thing. You'll be difficult not to find it if you're determined enough.
Okay, I'll put some links in the description of the video so people can go and buy it or listen to it. If people want to follow along with the adventures that you're soon to go on, where could they follow you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on various bits of social media. Again, probably not too difficult to find. You want to come and learn to ride a penny farthing, you can find me on Penny Farthing Club, neillaughton.com for speaking stuff and adventures, and yeah, various other places, LinkedIn, Instagram. Yeah, I'm not hiding. You'll find me.
Okay, again, I'll add those into the description. Well, Neil, I think we could go on talking for hours about all the adventures you've had and experiences you've had in life. And I really hope that this short conversation we've had has been able to summarize it and inspire and motivate the people that are listening or watching. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast, and some good questions, probing, sometimes difficult questions, but hopefully I've given some honest and hopefully half entertaining answers to some of your questions.
Thank you again, Neil. I'd love to talk to you more in person maybe one day.
I look forward to meeting up. Cheers, Sam.